Hi, this is a mini lecture about arpeggio. I will talk about how you can gain fluency, speed, and comfort when playing long arpeggios, especially when your tempo is getting pretty fast. And I will cover 4 key points that I find the most helpful in order to achieve that. Point number 1 is the proper choice of fingering. Without choosing fingers correctly, which means the most comfortable for your hand, you will encounter a lot of problems, and this is the very, very important first thing to determine which fingers are most comfortable for you to play a given arpeggio. I will show some fingering charts that have to do with rules of how arpeggio is generally played. But again, that will depend on a particular piece and how you approach this arpeggio and what's around it, the context. Point number 2 is the smooth and full weight transfer between all the fingers that are involved in playing the arpeggio. Because as soon as you miss any note, that means you didn't give it weight fully. That means that weight will be suspended somewhere in your arm. You will get tension that will lead to pain, that will lead to your inability to play any longer, and just like your hand will fall off. So point number 3, quick opening of your hand when changing position. Changing position meaning going under or over your thumb on the piano. So I will talk about that in detail, but just to show you what I mean by this is an open position when your hand is like this, da, 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 right? And then you have to go like this, that's closed position, and then you have to, as soon as you play, like for example 4, you have to open again. So open, close, and open again. So that motion has to be extremely quick. And when going back, when thumb has to prepare to play C, so he's going to prepare here, he's already going. He's not going to wait and then suddenly go here. So that movement has to already start from the beginning. So that motion of changing position, that's the speed that is going to determine the speed of your overall arpeggio. Point number 4 is light thumbs. Sorry, I don't know why my phone is in and out of focus, I'm sorry. So light thumb, why is that important? Because you want to avoid bumpy road like this, down, up, down. And how to avoid that is to put your thumb in a high position, so-called high position. And I will talk about that in detail. So make it lighter, so we don't have this, we have a smooth. And I will also mention how to work on gaining speed, how to get faster, and how to work on strength, improving strength of your fingers and holding that position. And here I will focus on 2 types of arpeggio, is the triad inversions and the 7th chorded inversion. So something like this, along, across octaves, of course, a long arpeggio. That's the triad. I'm not going to go over every single inversion. I'm just going to give you principles that are applicable for every type of a triad inversion. And the 7th chord, something like this. This is the dominant 7. I'll show you a chart for the diminished 7 as well. Something like this. So let's get started. I will put my camera here so you can see my hands, and I will talk along with the video. Okay, let's start with point number 1. I will, there is a sheet right here. It's from the Russian book, the Russian edition of Hanon. And you can see that there are fingerings for every type of arpeggio. These are for major, and then these are for minor keys. Of course, you can consult this when you're learning. There's also a quick rule which is applied to the left hand fingering, because left hand is somewhat more difficult, because the right hand is easy. It's just 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and then the extra finger is given to the bigger space, because it's always when it's the
root position triad, right? So same thing here, and so on, right? So it's the same fingering. For the left hand, however, it's different. If you're starting on a white key and the next key you have is also white, you're gonna have 5, 4, 2, 1, and 3 is gonna be here. If you start with any type, so it doesn't matter if it's minor third here, you still have 4, 3 is given here, or major third still 4 and 3 is here. If you have a white and then black key, that will change depending on what type of third you have on the bottom. Here have a minor third, so you give an extra finger to a bigger interval, major third here. If you have this, where's the major third? On the bottom, so you give the extra finger to the major third. So if you have white key followed by a white key in the left hand, it's always 5, 4, 2, 1. If you have a white key followed by a black key, depends on what interval you get on the bottom. The bigger interval, bigger the major third will get an extra finger. Sometimes these rules can be overlooked if your arpeggio is in some context where you need to choose a fingering depending on what's around it and how you approach it and what's coming out of that arpeggio. So be aware of that. Find the most comfortable fingering. Generally, the bigger the distance, the more fingers it's going to need. Between 1 and 2, the distance is already pretty big. So these 2 fingers can have a lot of keys in between. But other fingers, try to make sure that your hand feels comfortable. And if you want to try your fingering, whether it works or not, it's always best to try it at the tempo the target tempo. So whichever feels more comfortable. Okay, fingering for the 7th chords is also here. Generally, this is your position. You only have 5 fingers, so assuming that 1 finger per note, that's kind of much easier than the triads. You don't have to think about which finger gets which note. It's just in a row. And left hand, same thing if you want to go. So this is pretty straightforward for the 7th chords. Okay, that was the easy part when you start with a white note. When you don't start with a white note, the fingering gets a little bit more complicated, but usually you offer 2 options, like you can see here. If you wanted, you could use just the fingering that you would use otherwise on a white key. So it's this sort of fingering, 5, 4, 2, 5, 5, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, and so on. That is not the most comfortable because from 1 to 4 here, so that's for purposes where you really need that for some kind of turn around it. The fingering is determined by the context, like I said before. If not, if you're just practicing to play them, then use the other one where it doesn't usually start on the pinky with the black key. You choose something that's the most comfortable for your hand. That's more comfortable. So here for the left hand, and for the right hand also you're not going to start with 1, less it's unlikely. We try to avoid using thumb on the black key if we can, so you would prefer to use 2, 1. And the best thing about this fingering is that's actually symmetrical. 2, 1, 4, 2, 4, 2, what was it, right? But 2, 1. So it's actually quite comfortable, this fingering. So check again, same thing with the 7th chords. 7th chords, if they do not start with a white key, you want to check the secondary fingering here. That's the A5 major, that's the fingering that you have, the secondary one that's most comfortable. What do you do if you only have the black keys? You have to go with what you have is this. Unfortunately, there's no other way because all the keys are black and you can't avoid putting a thumb on the black key. By the way, arpeggi that are fully white keys are much more difficult to play than arpeggi with the black and white keys. You don't have any anchor, nothing tells you which key you're at, which position you're at, because everything is the same. So C major much more difficult than B major. Because B major, your hand, it feels, okay, yeah, I'm here, I know I'm here, because there's white key to black keys. That's the position. Easy to hold position, that's what I would say. C major is not easy to hold position, it's easy to slip, because there's so many notes that are all the same around it. So don't think that C major is easier than B major. Point number 2 is your weight transfer. That is the most important thing in order to avoid over tiring your hand. How do we check whether we have completed our weight transfer successfully or not? You can slowly just do this motion on every finger. Make sure that this is all relaxed and the finger is the only one that's responsible for holding that weight. So no tension here, no tension. This is all relaxed. Next finger, and I check myself, right? And I keep going. You can do that on any type. And then here, you check like this. If this is not moving, that means you're not giving weight here. Your weight is suspended here. Give it here. That's it. This is something here. Here, relax. You have to relax and make sure this is relaxed on every finger. Another good way to practice is non-legato. Down, up, down, all the way here, and so on. You give it. All right, here is the third point about opening of the hand, and what do I mean by that? So we have change of position in arpeggio, quick change of position. Change of position in piano playing means when you go over or under the thumb. Well, let's use the B major. That's one position. If I need to switch here, I need to change position of my thumb, right? So what do I mean by this is open hand. And here I have a closed hand and I have to open again. Closing the hand has to be quick, meaning the thumb from here is already moving towards his new note, B. And as soon as I play B, first watch my thumb, and I open immediately. I'll do slowly again. Thumb is here, and immediately. I'm exaggerating like that a little bit, but it has to be really quick. So that movement is going to determine your speed, the speed of this. Because just going down in the same position with your finger is very easy, right? Very easy. But this, the turn, that's going to determine your speed. Same thing with the left hand. This is one position. This is new position. So I'm going to go here, and as soon as I press the E flat or D sharp here, I'm going to open. Going down, sorry, the left hand, same thing. Thumb is already preparing for B. Close, open, and so on. Another point about black keys, you can actually use the flat finger for the black keys. It's almost flat, right? So going like this might be uncomfortable on the black key. So oftentimes you play with flat fingers on the black key. So don't do this. I mean, of course, don't do this kind of shape, but just this is fine. Also another trick. So generally we try to keep our hand parallel to the key as much as we can. We try to avoid moving sideways. What do I mean? So this has to do with opening and closing. If I go like this, that's sideways. That's very uncomfortable. This is why I have to go in my initial position immediately. That brings me back into parallel with the key. That's why the turns are uncomfortable uncomfortable, and we try to, as soon as we are done with it, rectify that position and go back to normal. So try to keep, when you play arpeggio, fast ones or any kind of, avoid that. You already hear. Same here. The last point is about the thumb. What you want to avoid, especially, well, it's especially noticeable with the Triads arpeggio. Let's say you have C major. Especially the students of mine who just start playing arpeggio, that's their natural thing. They go down, and they have this kind of wave, which is going to break your arpeggio. It's going to be like a bumpy road. You don't want that. You want it to be smooth. So what do? You want to put thumb in the high position. This is high position like this. You don't want it to go down, a little higher. So, and you keep it high. You don't go down with your wrist. Don't go up and down. Keep your wrist high, so thumb can go under without going up, right? So if thumb goes down here, then for him to go again over here, he can do this. So you have to put your hand up again, the wrist, and then down, up. That's very uncomfortable and it's just gonna hurt your hand. So, and it's gonna be ugly. So don't do that. 1, 2, 3. Thumb here. That's high position. High position like this, right? And same left hand. That's the high position. Not like this, but rather like this. Thumb is not like this, but like that. Yeah? It also makes him lighter, because naturally he's the heaviest finger, so if you go like this, he's gonna be lazy. But if you go like this, it's like a pointy toe. Another exercise to practice avoiding hitting thumb too loud is to bring the accent to another note rather than thumb. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Helps you with the weight transfer as well. Checking you have it here. 1, 2, 3. So first on 1, and on 2, 3, 5, 3, 2. All right. Now a couple things you can do to practice your position, holding your position in your arpeggio, is one is to play notes together rather than separate, meaning as a chord, or intervals. So here, if you have something like this, you can practice playing as a chord. And you can break it. Together, but every time just make sure you transfer the tones. Same with the left hand, and regular arpeggio you can also do like this. Could do like this if you want. Here's another one, quick, going from here, for example, triad, thumb, and then this. Grabbing that position quickly. It will help you gain speed as well, and the same with the right hand. Also quickly changing. Could be from here, 4, 1, 4, 4, 1. Of course, 4, 1 is important, but there's not just one. It's one opening. So this, for example, and things like that. Also, another good one to practice is just going from note to note, kind of oscillating motion. And so on. And another way to strengthen your fingers when you play arpeggio is, one of them is just to play every note staccato. Finger staccato, not wrist staccato, not the hand staccato, not like this, but just finger close to the key and jump off. That type of staccato. Minimal hand motion. And another one, you can just hold thumb, for example. And so on. That exercise also helps. Same with the left hand. With left hand, you can hold the pinky. Also, this type you can do. Why holding the pinky or the thumb? Because that ensures you are holding that position where you're going to be, the open position, right? And so on. And the last point is how to gain speed. The speed is the easiest thing, is to trick your mind and which units you think. So let's say you think 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's bum, bum, bum. Now you can think in 6, but keep the beat the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So your beat is the same. Now 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3. So the faster you want to play, the bigger unit you want to think about. So a second way to practice speed is to practice with stops, different places. Stops after you open. So 1, quickly, here's your stop. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Of course, you can also practice like this. And the last point about speed, if you have an arpeggio that's long, don't forget that you have your arm to help you. So if, like, that's a Rachmaninoff arpeggio I showed, like my arm goes here, right? I don't just, like, give yourself space. Or if you're playing just an arpeggio like this, type of movement with your arms, don't forget about it.
So that's it. I hope that was clear enough and helpful for the most of you. Of course, I didn't cover every single point possible about arpeggio. It's just not I didn't want it to be a 2-hour tutorial, but rather like a small video mini lecture. If you have any other points you would like me to answer, please feel free to leave a comment. Also, if you have an idea about another technique I could cover in a similar mini lecture type of video, please let me know. I'm gonna be happy to consider all the suggestions. And thank you for subscribing to my channel and for watching this video.